ici. This is part 2 of this Coil subjective primer. It took a few days to get back to it. Hard week, long week, which ended up in quite an unexpected but good way. Hint. Anyways, background music. Nicola Ratti, Italian composer. I think he's a guitarist as well. This is featuring Dale Cornish, a great experimental composer as well. I think it came out 2 years ago. It's really a wonderful album. Nicola Ratti. Anyway, so here we were, living it off after Love Secret Domain, LSD, Coil's insane album, which was so insane that there were so many outtakes that they had to release limited edition, only available through their subscription list, outtakes companion, Stolen and Contaminated Songs. Why am I showing a CD when there's a vinyl version of it? Well, it's a bootleg. A little story behind the bootleg side of Coil's discography. Coil were mostly Peter and John, who both died, and they had no heir, so the right holder situation is kind of unclear. Some recordings featuring Stephen Frower, Drew McDowell, Thigh Boyle, Sandra obviously share an ownership with these three musicians, but for the most part everything is kind of blurry and disputed. Hence, very few official reissues of their main material, but there's quite a few bootlegs, high quality bootlegs. I think I know they got bad rep, but to be perfectly honest, most of it is pretty good, with a few exceptions. Anyways, this is wonderful, and for the original Chaos Trophy track all alone, this is worth the price of admission. Really essential Coil, basically. Or first get Love Secret Domain, then get this. Much less essential but quite fun is this. This was recently issued by Musique pour la Danse label, which is basically Mental Groove in Switzerland, in France actually. This was Danny Hyde's and Coil, well, it's kind of the same at the time, soundtrack to an instruction sex video for gay people, for gay men. The Gay Man's Guide to Safer Sex. I got the VHS of that actually, because Coil was featured on it. This is trancy, ambient, a bit cheesy. Not really, it's not the right word, but this is quite a fun album to listen to, but you got lots of stuff to discover before getting into this. Then came probably my favorite Coil track ever. Coil is Suicide a Solution, with Airborne Bells on the B-side, or the other way around, I'm not sure. It's on the Clawfist label, one of my very favorite indie labels from the UK. They released split singles, split EPs, one with Loop and God, or Godflesh, and the one with Terminal Cheesecake. Mumbo Taxi with the Face Healers, covering ABBA. Face Healers is a huge favorite of mine. His Suicidal Solution features the recording that Coil got on their answering machine from a friend who shared news of a common friend of them passing away, I believe from AIDS. Oh no, he was sick. I won't go into the details. It's a little bit blurry. Either way, it features guitar drones that are very much in contrast of the dramatic and dark tone of the message, which has an added aesthetic quality of the distortion from the answering machine tape. The guitar is quite elegiacal. Anyways, it's very open and light in a way. So there's a huge contrast there, which is sublime in my opinion. At the same time, Coil released this. I'm not sure I talked about it before in the previous video. I'm quite unsure. Anyways, this is the soundtrack to Blue, Derek Jarman's most of an experimental movie. This was limited to 1,023 copies. This is number 78. That doesn't really mean anything. So yes, the record is Blue. I believe there's other editions, much more limited, with other colors, but why would you want another color or blue? There's a few Coil stickers. Then was released a compilation on Sub Rosa, featuring one of Coil's absolute best electronic techno tracks ever, Baby Food, which is, I believe, slang for acid or LSD. Anyways, it's a very long electronic track, very beautiful, there's lots of tension in it, but lots of release as well. This was reissued by Sub Rosa as a single a few years ago with Another Brown World, another track they released on another compilation covered in part 1 of this series. This is absolutely essential. This is one of Coil's absolute best tracks if you are into their electronic period. Another similar release, Coil versus the Eschaton, which is Coil basically, with the track NASA Arab, one of their most famous tracks, which is also electronic, trancey, quite psychedelic. It also features the track First Dark Ride. This is John, Peter, Danny Hyde and Drew McDowell. This is a really good record, compiled somewhere, but this is the original. At the time, Trent Reznor was such a huge fan of them that he offered to produce an album for them to cover all costs, and invited them to his studio in America, which I believe was either very bad taste. It was either located in the Span Ranch, which is Charles Manson's headquarters, or in his victim's house, which is Sharon Tate's house, which became even more famous recently because of the Quentin Tarantino movie. During the span of a few years, I believe it was between 93 and 96, Coil recorded, not 96, around 93, 94 or so, Coil recorded an album which was never released because they were either not satisfied with it, the label, Interscope, was not satisfied with it, but this would have been Coil's big break, opening them the road to touring Northern America alongside Nine Inch Nails. And anyways, there was a cassette demo cassette released back then, which Danny Hyde finished and released a few years ago, backwards. It's actually quite good, but unfinished at times, but tracks like Heaven's Blade or Epic, songs, song-based recordings, with the whole spectrum of what Coil stands for, I believe, and or at least what you would expect from Coil when you start to get a knowledge about their discography. So maybe not the most essential release of Coil, but a really good one, a very instructive one with a few gems. Last year, further archival recordings, also from Danny Hyde's side, on the Infinite Fog Productions, Coil Swan-Yard recordings, which are basically to the backward recordings what Stolen and Contaminated Songs were to LSD. This features a few featurings, such as Mick Harris on drums on one track, and well, this is interesting recording, and I'm glad I got it. And it features Steven Stapleton from Nurse with Wound cover art. There you go. Then came some of the weirdest Coil recordings. Elf. Coil supposedly captured interdimensional transmission from aliens. Coil worshipped the glitch and the single that came with it. 2 10-inches, a double 10-inch and a single 10-inch of music that became very influential for the whole IDM scene, and since it put to words a concept, the glitch, that was to become central to electronic music, IDM, electronica, whatever you want to call it, during the 90s and early 2000s. This is more on the ambient noise side of things. It's quite aesthetic, if you would say so. Nevertheless, very interesting. Recently reissued as a double LP, I believe. And because Coil were into this electronic phase, they were asked to do some remixes. Here is the first one, released at least. This is a Twist, the Chris and Cozy, a cocktail of intoxicating sounds, featuring mixers, Carl Craig, Chris and Cozy, Coil, Cosmic Connection, Fred Gianelli, Tuscan Raiders, which is music also featured there, Vapor Space. This is quite good. This is a fun album. The Coil remix is a work in progress, I would say, but it's still very interesting. Much better is this remix Coil also did in 95, I believe. Ellipsis, Coil, Scorn, Mick Harris, at his absolute best, being remixed by Coil. Probably the track I listened the most throughout the 90s as a teen. This is a 12-inch box set featuring remixes from Meatbeat Manifesto, Ottaker, Scanner, Bill Laswell, and Coil, including a second Coil remix exclusive to the box set. This is essential. This is really what paved the way to a lot of aesthetic ground that Coil were the pioneers of, and this is them doing this at their best. Kind of on a similar level, the Macro Dub Infection Volume 1, curated by Kevin Martin from God and later The Bug and Techno Animal. Also featuring one of course absolute best electronic tracks, The Heels Are Alive. This also features The Rootsman, Spring Heel Jack, Laika, Omni Trio, Tortoise, Earthling, Bondaloo, Tricky, Wagenkreis, Mad Professor, Golden Palomino's, For Hero. A great, very influential compilation. that you don't need to own only for the Coil track, actually, because there's lots of treasures within this. The culmination of Coil's electronic period. Coil represents the Black Light District. This is also a mixture of songs and instrumental tracks, heavily influenced by Designer Drugs, I believe. This is also a Steven Stapleton cover. There's tracks like Blue Rats that are such beautiful, motoric, monotonous songs but still a track like Stone Circle or Two. This is the soundtrack of me off to take my final exam of high school. That was my mom driving me to the exam center, so therefore I managed to convince her to play this, which I recorded on a cassette back then. And I must say that I actually killed it, and this was my best exam ever, best marks I got, and maybe it was part to this, due to this, which is, this is essential Coil. This is one of the absolute essential Coil recordings, in my opinion. And there you go. Let's change sides quickly. More remixes. Fog, Psychic Warriors of Gaia. Remixed, rejammed by Plastic Man, Mark Broom and Coil. So this is very minimalistic techno. Quite cool actually. But not the most baroque Coil track ever. Psychic Warriors of Gaia were a unit from Holland, I believe, inspired by Psychic TV, the Psychic Youth Temple. So there's another connection, even if there were great techno, European techno act from the early 90s. Another remix from the same time, Tactile, John Everall, noise, dark, ambient artist. This is surprisingly on Raucous, which is mostly known for hip-hop. This is Tactile versus Coil versus Korn and versus a side project of Pansonic, which I never really knew how to pronounce because it's just a sign. This is also very minimal. It's alright. Not the best Coil remix, but it's Coil. You gotta try it. Then came this really interesting double 10-inch compilation featuring Current 93, Nurse with Wound, Coil and various combination of them. This was the Foxtrot album, which was a benefit album to finance John's health, because he was an addict, an alcoholic, and he was supposed to get treated, and this was supposed to finance his treatment. The tracks are all amazing on this. This is really a very interesting Coil-related release. Coil's beginning of the next phase, Time Machines, which arguably is Drew McDowell's project. This is very dark. This is a double LP, 4 tracks, dark drone tracks, each a tone to facilitate travel through time. Basically, it's 4 tracks done about or under the influence of 4 different designer drugs, synthesis drugs, telepathine, Hecat, DMT, and psilocybin, which is the mushroom. So it's not that designerish, but yeah, well, there's more information on this that will give you clues about that. This is an amazing album. Maybe not the one to start Coil with, because it's very special. It owes a lot to La Monte Young, obviously, but not only. And this was Coil becoming even more psychedelic, but in another way, which showed even more in their next project. This series of 4 singles, which came out each at a different solstice of the year. So this is Coil becoming more of a psychedelic industrial band, post-industrial, I must say, whatever that means. And these were later compiled into a double CD with all these tracks plus the additional ones that were featured on 2 of the CD versions of these, which I also have, but I didn't have the additional tracks on vinyl. Thankfully comes the bootleg. The CD, the double CD also included a bonus LP CDR release of a performance that was really good. So bummer, but at least we got this bootleg with all these additional tracks, and this is really good. At the same time, Coil did an album that was only to be pressed to the amount of subscribers to the pre-order. Unfortunately, very few people subscribed to it for various reasons, which resulted in only 93 people, I believe, or something around 100, actually ordering the record. So there's around 100 copies of it that were released. Because the music was great, Coil realized we can't have only that out, so they did a more commercially available release with different takes on the tracks. So basically it's not the same music, but it's from the same session, and most of the tracks are different versions of the tracks from the original pressing, which is this Astral Disaster, which Coil released themselves instead of the original release, which was on prescription. The release on prescription was for years one of the most expensive and hard to locate release of Coil. But then it got reissued a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, I believe, 5 years ago maybe, officially and quite widely, which makes the record quite easy to get, which makes this much harder to find. This is a red vinyl, by the way, for those who care. But the prescription recordings obviously were quite vast, which resulted in the reissue of the original recording triggering a first issue of other outtakes from these recording sessions, unfinished musics from the Astral Disaster. This was also released on prescription. A second volume of this actually just got released and is actually worth your money. This is amazing. Then came Coil's album that got the best reception. Coil suddenly became a band that was acceptable, that was to be looked upon. Music to Play in the Dark, which I pre-ordered from their website and got a CDR of something with, I don't remember exactly which one. This is actually not my favorite Coil record, but it is amazing. But this is when Coil started to get a lot of attention, offered to do big shows in big festivals, and it's Coil being the sum of everything before, plus crowd rock, plus I don't know, cabaret maybe. This is nevertheless essential Coil. Right after that, they do this collaboration. It only came out on CD back then, but it was reissued officially a few years ago on Ghostbox, which is Mount Vernon Arts Lab, and there's this track called Hobgoblins with Coil. It's a very nice track, but the record alone is worth the price of admission, as you say. Then came Coil, Music to Play in the Dark, Volume 2. I much prefer this one to the first one, solely because of the track Tiny Golden Books, which is epic, which I saw them perform live, and it was just amazing. This came out in various editions, including this one, Moon White, with an etching on side D, Moon Surface, whatever, I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty cool. But music is what matters, and this is one of the great Coil albums. Then came out an acetate of the bonus tracks from the Solstices series, the Moon's Milk series. This has a thumbprint of John Balance, and it was released not really officially, but it was quite cool to have until this was released. Bootleg of this, the bonus tracks from the Moon's Milk CD, this CDR performance. This is really good, and I'm so glad it got bootleg. The quality is alright, it's not the best, but it's the only way to go and get this in vinyl. Another live performance that got released, I got the CD somewhere, but then bootleg. Queens of the Circulating Library, essential recording for my personal history since I started a website in the 2000s called the Circular Library in French, La Librairie Circulaire. This is really cool. This is very psychedelic. This is like a ritual music. I really like this album, and I'm happy to have it on vinyl as well. Then came the restitution of Decayed Intelligence, a 10-inch which was part of the Lactamaz series, a series of 12 or 13 10-inches released by the Beta Lactam label. If you subscribe to the whole series, you would get an additional bonus 12-inch with short tracks from all the artists exclusive to that one. Which I got, and it's I believe here. Yeah, it's featuring bands such as Tony Conrad with Edward Caspel, Rick Reed, Stimulus Aranos, Vast Deferens Organisation, I love this band, Volcano de Beer, the Shara Lombides, Troom, White Lodge, and Coil. But right in between this, Coil released another CDR, right between the release of the EP and the release of the final compilation. Coil released a CDR called the Remote Viewer, which got reissued on double CD with additional tracks a few years later, and on a bootleg quite recently. This is one of my two favorite Coil records, especially for the bonus tracks. I don't know what to tell you about, apart from the fact that it's psychedelic, dark, electronic, and also ritual music in so many ways. This is really essential in my opinion. Another Coil performance, the Megalithomania CDR, which was released I believe in 2003 or so, bootlegged. This is one of the best Coil live performances, so this is really good.